How did you get to New York City?
How did I get to New York City? I thought that I was going to move back to Denver after college because that's where I'm from. Huh. And then in August after I graduated and I had spent some time in DC, which I went to school at GW, I was like, I don't think that Denver's really the place to pursue professional magic. Like I could do it, but it has much less to offer than New York. And I kind of made that call in mid-August to be like, I'm just going to send it. If I want to do magic full time, I'm going to do it in the best place that I can. And I made the call to do it. So I backpacked for a couple months after college. And then January 2023, New York City.
I'm sure everyone who meets you asks you this, but I have to get this recorded. How did you get into magic in the first place?
Yeah, it's funny because it's like it's such a valid question, and the answer is not even that interesting, I think. But I tell everyone the same thing, which is that my grandmother took me to this little store in Denver called the Wizard's Chest, and it was like a costume game puzzle shop. And that also had a magic counter. And then a magician showed me a trick, and it was like the best $6 she ever spent because she bought me that trick, and that opened my love for it. And it was just a hobby. It was just a hobby for a while. And then it blossomed and continued. And I ended up having a mentor, and then I went to a magic camp, and then magic camp was like really formative for me because I met a lot of people who I'm still in touch with now and are really, really great friends. And it's one of those things that like you find people who want to support you and you gravitate toward them, and then all of a sudden you're doing magic.
Do you remember the trick that the first trick you saw? What it was? What did you see? It
was called sponge balls. It's a pretty simple trick, but I love it still. I don't perform it anymore, but I still love it. Which is basically, it's like a little clown nose. Imagine that, just no hole in it for the nose. And then you put one in your hand and you put one in the other person's hand, and then the magician opens their hand and theirs disappears and appears in the other person's hand. And there's lots of variations of this, but that was the general idea.
Do you think, in thinking back on that story, that you knew kind of right away this was something that you wanted to pursue seriously? It sounds like initially it was just something you did for fun.
Totally was something I did for fun. Yeah, it's not like I saw the trick and was like, oh, that has to be my job. But like I started to do it more and be like, oh, this would be cool. And the idea was always floated in my head of like, oh, what if I did this full time? But I didn't seriously consider doing full-time magic of like an actual like real discussion with myself and my parents until like junior year of college. Because for me, that's when the pandemic hit sophomore year of college for me. And junior year, GW was still online, and I didn't really want to take online classes very much. So I took a semester off, and this was now spring of 2021. So I went back to Colorado and I did two things, which were skiing and then virtual magic shows, because everyone was doing these Zoom shows, which were in shockingly high demand.
Wow.
Every company wanted like an interesting interactive thing that they could do for their team.
Yeah.
And this was genuinely interactive and a good show. So it basically let me test out the lifestyle of like, oh, do I want to do this professionally? And I was living a good life. I was literally getting to ski. I was getting to hang out with my friends where it was safe with whenever the vaccines got rolled out. And I was also getting to work, and I was like, oh, I like this lifestyle and I'm going to keep going. And that junior year of college area is when I started to be like, oh, I could really do this.
Let's go back to when you first got into this as a hobby. How intensely did you approach this when you first were getting into it way back?
Pretty intensely. I got magic lessons when I was a kid from this woman, Charlie, who was a local magician in Denver. And she taught me magic for like 5 years, which was awesome. And she did kids parties like all around Denver. And that was pretty intense because we'd have lessons like all the time. And then I was part of this other like magic club basically in Colorado, and go to those like monthly meetings, and we would do magic. And I was like one of the youngest kids there, but like I would immerse myself in that. So yeah, no, there was a lot of practice that went into it, and you're working for hours a day sometimes, but like you're learning and you're growing, and it's really fun. I still wasn't performing that much, and that was the issue. It's like you get so much better through actually doing shows. I was like working on magic a lot, but I was probably only doing like 5 to 10 shows a year, which is not really a lot. Now I might do 5 in a week if I'm having a good week. But I was still taking it really seriously.
Was it the love primarily, as you think back on that, the love of the surprise of surprising and shocking others? Do you regard yourself as like a natural performer? How do you think about where the natural resonance came from?
I definitely like public speaking. I think I've always I don't believe that too much comes naturally in life, but I for whatever reason, public speaking kind of always has come naturally. Like I've always been at least good enough at it, and I've definitely gotten better, but I've never had a problem with it. So there's that. And I think you go in and out of reasons why you do it. And I think maybe as a kid, it's like, oh, you're getting attention from other people, and that's really cool. And now I think it is a really, like, magic is a gift that you can give to somebody, and it really can resonate. And it's a very unique experience that you don't get anywhere else. Like finding this surprise is really cool. And I know that I can give that to people, and that's really nice. And that's kind of what keeps me going, is like knowing that you can actually make someone's day a lot better if you're doing a good job.
Did you get the sense fairly quickly that you had a talent for this?
Yeah. I mean, I was nice because my parents were really supportive of me doing this. And so when you're getting positive feedback from a lot of people in your life, it's like, oh, maybe I could keep doing it. And I'm lucky because a lot of times people want to pursue the arts, and their family or the people closest to them are the ones that are, dissuading them from doing it, which is really sad. I'm lucky that was never the case, and I had a really good support system around me. So I was not like, I don't think I was like 10 years old and was a prodigy or anything. Like I definitely wasn't. There's so many people who are way better than me, and plenty of people who still are better than me. But I definitely was good enough that the people around me were like, oh yeah, you should keep doing this. And that gave me a lot of confidence, even maybe when I wasn't doing that well, and maybe I should have quit, but people around me were encouraging me, and I kept doing it. So that's nice.
What are the traits that make someone naturally, if not a genius at this, talented?
I think it's like a willingness to push through problems is a big one. And it's something I still struggle with, but it's like, if you're coming up with a new trick, it's very easy to quit, and it's very easy to stop when it's like kind of average or good enough. And the willingness to push through, whether that's like figuring out the method of a trick, whether it's changing the scripting, whether it's changing the blocking, like the more that you are willing to push through something, the better it's going to end up being, because you're entering a territory that less and less people have gone, the more that you're willing to push and work. So I think that's a good one. And I also just think like general self-awareness, like so much of magic is so much about the magician, and it's not about the audience. And the more that you can bring it to the audience, the better it's going to be, and the more it's going to resonate. And so you kind of have to have that self-awareness of like, why am I doing this? And is it too much about me right now? And can we make it more about the audience? And, I think it's just like, Penn and Teller.
Sure.
Penn has a thing, I forget the exact quote, but it's basically something along the lines of like, magic is forced empathy, right? It forces you to think about it from somebody else's perspective. Because I know the secret to the trick, but you don't. So I have to be like, okay, yeah, but what does it look like from Dan's perspective? Because that's the only one that actually matters. My perspective's actually irrelevant,
Did you have I remember a couple names of very famous magicians, but when you were just getting going, were there people you were looking to online as sort of faraway mentors, or people you really admired as like the gold standard for global magic? Are there people that most people who are not in your world may not know about, who are regarded widely in your world as being truly world-class at this?
Yeah, I mean, one guy I'll point out who definitely isn't well known but is phenomenal and pretty well respected is a guy named Nate Staniforth. He has a very cool YouTube series. He has a book. When he was young, when he probably 26, 27, he went to India to go look at basically just trying to find like what he was calling real magic, but he wanted to find how, ancient people practiced magic and all these cool traditions. And he has these awesome videos of him traveling around India and showing magic for people on the street, and they're really well shot and documented, and he's great. And he's also just a really, really good performer. Very, very bare bones, not a lot of music, not a lot of set, just like really simple, strong magic. So he's excellent. I'm rereading his book right now, which just talks about his journey to India. So he's amazing. There's a guy, Aussie Wind, who a lot of people do know, but also is still not like globally famous, but one of the best magicians in the world. He's phenomenal. Was in New York until very recently, and then lives in LA, but outstanding guy. There's also, there's the classics of Penn and Teller and David Blaine that a lot of people know, but it is cool to find people who are like not underground in the magic community, but underground for everybody else, and be like, no, they're absolutely incredible. Yeah.
I want to get back to your trajectory here in a moment, but before I do, I have to ask you this, because I wonder if your career now working in this world, how it's influenced your knowledge of the human psyche and human nature's propensity for gullibility, and if that has influenced the way you look at people in our culture who are selling something that they are marketing as being magic, quote unquote, in the world of politics or in the world of business, and they are a charlatan. If you have more of a bias towards that, seeing through false promises or that kind of mentality because you have seen behind the curtain so much in your world, does that resonate with you at all, that translates critical thinking basically and skepticism into other worlds too?
Yeah, it absolutely translates. I don't think that if you're fooled by a magic trick that you're necessarily gullible, because to me, I think of it sometimes as like you just don't speak the same language. Like I have a language of methods that you just don't know. So in the same way that if someone was speaking Chinese, I wouldn't know what they're saying.
That's a great point.
If I'm speaking in a certain method, it doesn't mean that you're gullible. People are always like, oh, I feel so stupid that I was fooled by a trick. It's like, you're not stupid at all. In fact, the smarter you are, I think the more you can actually appreciate a good magic trick. So I don't think it's about gullibility, but I think you do learn a lot about genuine psychology, and people always think it's a psychology of like reading someone, figuring out what they're thinking. I think that's a very small part of it. There's psychology of figuring out what people will remember and what's the story that they'll tell about a trick. And that's really interesting to think about. If I say these words and if I emphasize this image and if I talk to you in a certain way, will you remember the trick in the way that I want you to remember it, which is without the method in it? And that psychology is amazing, and certainly can translate to any world of business or politics. It's just simply like, what does it mean to generate trust and to get people to like you and agree with you,
In another life, I used to work at an organization that was associated with James Randi.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you know that name.
Yeah.
Who's also, I don't, probably far better than I do, but I know he was a magician and was well regarded in that world. And one of the things I know that he was known for was debunking very often very famous individuals who literally claimed to be clairvoyant, psychic, supernatural. And some of these videos are online where he understands the sleight of hand, the tricks of the mind that are being played oftentimes from these people. And as somebody myself who is very interested in truth and skepticism, I always so appreciated someone like that coming forward and basically educating the public on how these individuals who are claiming to be supernatural are making it appear as though they are. I don't know if you have any other comments you want to add to that, but to me, there's something deeply fascinating about the work that you do. And as you just said, knowing the language that most normal people don't understand. So they're confused sometimes about how it works.
I never for a second will claim that I'm clairvoyant on stage, but I'll make it look that way. You know what I mean? And I do want it to look that way. And I mean, there's a new thing that I've been working on that I was just testing out in Chicago this weekend, which the trick is as simple as someone points to somebody in the room and then I look at them and I go Aquarius or whatever their star sign is. Like that's what they see. That is exactly what happens. But I'm not clairvoyant. And despite that, it is your job to make it look that way, I think. But the interesting thing is there's a magician named Ben Earl who's a really, really good card magician, but also like just a really brilliant thinker. And he had a point a few years ago, which is basically like the reason magic is good is because it's not real. If I just existed and I had these powers, it's not interesting. It's like, oh, that's, you know what I mean? Like we all know that we can tie our shoes. That's not impressive. And if you knew that I could just read minds as part of my natural functioning as a human being, it wouldn't be interesting. And you wouldn't pay to see that. The fact that it's not real is exactly what makes it interesting. So yeah, James Randi was right to debunk these people who are clairvoyant. And also, when the people are claiming they're clairvoyant, they're usually doing it at the expense of somebody in a really vulnerable position of, oh, your mom died, I can talk to her. They can't. There's absolutely no proof that they can do that. They're just basically stealing money from someone who's really sad and who's grieving. So I prefer to look at it in a very, very secular way of just like, it's literally not real. I'll say that till the end of time, but I have zero problem making it look that way on stage because that's the fantasy that we're trying to buy into. Yeah,
that's the entertainment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I want to get back to you and the story and the trajectory of your own career. You said earlier, I think it was your junior year of college when you began to think more seriously about doing this professionally. What happened? How did you kind of come to that point where you realized there might be something here for me to make a career and make a living doing this?
It was the reps of doing shows. So they were all virtual shows on Zoom, but it was a lot of reps. So I probably did 100 virtual shows.
Wow.
And so when you start to do that, you're like, oh, I'm enjoying this. Like I liked tweaking the show. I liked the fact that I was, making an income. I didn't mind the fact that the income was irregular and less predictable, because once you do something in high enough volume, it becomes like sort of predictable. And the lifestyle was good. Like for me, I love the flexibility of waking up and getting to decide what I do with my day.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. So to have all those things coalesce where it's like, I can make a living from this, that's great. Like I'm very lucky that I don't have another job or source of income. Like it's just magic. And so I realized like I can make a living from this. This is great. I enjoy it. I enjoy the rest of the lifestyle. And that's not to say it's always easy. Like there's days when it's hard, or there's, every magician in the world will say, yep, you have some slow months and you also have some busy months, and learning to deal with that is difficult, but you do it because it's like, I'm not looking for perfection, but like I definitely think that I found a thing that I love to do, that I'm good enough at, that I can continue, that has room for improvement, and that I like. Yeah, it makes me happy.
How have you been able to generate I used to work in the tech sales world, the leads, like the opportunities for yourself to actually generate enough business for yourself where you're making a living out of this? Is it mostly word of mouth? Are you leveraging online advertising? Like what's worked? Like what's helped you?
A few things. So I have an email list that I build. I still would like that to convert higher than it does, but I'm always accumulating more emails. And that's one of those things that's, I think, a big function of time as well. Like that email list will be so much more valuable in 5 years, 10 years. So there's that. I don't do any advertising, but the place that I've really like generated leads for myself has been producing public shows. Normally public shows are not a huge source of income for people, but when you do them at the volume that I do them at, they can be. And so I've been lucky to get to tour a few times. And we've partnered with a company called The Nudge, which sends tickets, basically sends you things to do in your city. And so for us, they send out tickets. And so we've partnered with them to sell tickets in like basically 10 or 12 of their cities. And then me and my friend Tess, who you saw at Stand Up Magic, have done 2 nationwide tours together. And so that ends up being reliable income because we've worked with The Nudge enough times that they can regularly sell out our shows. And so when you pretty much know the show is going to sell out, then you can plan for that income and you can generate those leads. And so if you're doing a public show, the way to make money is just to have low costs. Like the shows are going to generate the same amount of revenue every time, but if you have lower costs, you can do better. So for example, I do a lot of shows in Denver where my costs are basically a plane ticket and then I can stay at home. I'm not paying for food, transportation, because I'm lucky that I have family there. And we also have a venue that's not like, we have venues that are like these big grand theaters that are a lot of money. We have venues that are like smaller comedy clubs that are less. So the one that we have in Denver is a relatively low rental fee. And so it allows us to have wide margins. And so it's really just about like figuring out where are the venues that you can play, that you can maximize your revenue from. And then if you can do them enough times, then you're going to get those leads. And then for corporate and private work, that is just word of mouth. One thing I really do want to do is generate more active leads for it, because that's where more of the money can come. Like public shows is great, but most professional magicians, by like 99%, are doing a large majority of their income through public or through private and corporate, because corporate has the money. So I'm happy that I've done a lot of it through public shows, but I know that I could make even more money if I like just did a little bit more work doing the corporate shows too.
When you were in college and decided this was the path you want to go down, what were you studying? What was the alternative route you were considering?
I studied political communication in Washington, D.C. So I guess the alternative route was politics, but like I know so many people who did that major who like, you end up in a marketing firm or something like that, or it just, there's all these jobs that when you're 7, you had no idea existed. And you're like, oh, I'm a communications manager at this firm. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it was like, that was the alternative, was like being in an office in Washington, D.C. or something. And like, I just couldn't do it. Like I thought the vibe was so toxic, and I'm not built for 9 to 5. I did one internship after or my freshman year of college, and I knew I wasn't cut out for it because it was at one of those like kind of cool young tech companies where they treat you really well. And I was like, I was pampered. Like they were so nice to us. They gave us food and snacks and time off when we needed it. Like it was great. And I was like, if I can't handle this environment, then I can't handle any office environment, because that was like the gold standard. So that was when I was like, yeah, there's no way I can do this.
And eventually you decided to come to New York.
Yep.
Why?
Because it's the best place for magic in the country.
Is that right?
I think. I mean, I'm sure people who would make the argument for LA because of the magic castle out there. I think it's New York. I really think the best magic in the world, or maybe not the world, but the best magic in the country at the very least is in New York City. And, you know, it's like I could go to Denver and I could be a big fish in a really small pond, or I could come to New York and be a small fish in a really big pond. And that's actually better if you're trying to get good. Like I came to New York and I wasn't that good. I really believe that. Like I was passable, but I was not that good. I mean, I would produce these shows and I wouldn't even be able to close my own show. Now I think I'm good. And I think I think I can get a lot better. Like I think there's plenty of magicians in New York who are way better than me, but I've definitely improved significantly. And it's because I'm around people who are constantly making me better.
That's fast. I've never heard that the best magic in the country is in New York. Yeah. Why has this city become that place?
I think it's just a function of that's just what New York is. You see, the best of most things are here. The best theater is here, and so much of the best food and art. And it's hard for me to speak for other industries, but like pretty much everything in the world that's not, you know, outdoor related is really, really great in New York. So I think it's just a function of that, is that it has such a rich history of supporting artists.
I'd love to hear about the moment you decided to come here. And if you I've talked to a lot of artists about this decision to actually come to not only a place where there's world-class everything happening, but arguably the most expensive place in the world to be. And they're often correlated. Did you already have a lot of work lined up? Was it a bit of a leap of faith? What was going on prior to you deciding like this? It's time to go.
It was a leap of faith. It was a pure leap of faith. It's ridiculous in hindsight. No, I had barely any work lined up. The first month I moved here was January. I think I did 4 shows. That's not enough. The next month I think I did maybe 6. But it compounds. By the end of the first year I was there, I did 100 shows. And then 150. And then this year, I think will be around 150 as well. So, you know, I went and I was like, I got to start working. And that's how Stand Up Magic, my show, got created, because within like a week of me being in New York, I ended up at West Side Comedy Club, where a friend of mine was producing a show. And then by pure luck, I'm standing with him afterwards, and then the booker of West Side Comedy Club. And we were chatting. I think I may have even done a trick for her, but I honestly don't remember. And she was like, oh yeah, well, we're trying to do some programming on Sundays. Like, would you maybe want to do like a kids matinee show? And I was like, I don't want to do anything for kids, but like we could do like a 7 p.m. adult magic show. And she said yes. So that's how Stand Up Magic got created. Is I just had to do a magic show in a comedy club, and I called it Stand Up Magic. And the shows were not that good. Like we did a couple at West Side, maybe 1 or 2 of them were good. Most of them were bad. And then eventually we moved to the Gutter, which is where we do it now in Williamsburg. And so the room changed, the vibe changed, the show got significantly better over time. We added Tess as our permanent host. We added my friend Jason as a co-producer, and now the show's been off and running. Which is just a long way to say that, like, you move here with nothing and you just have to make it work. And it's that exact pressure that makes you just kind of fight for it. And you're like, well, I got to pay my rent somehow. You got to try and get these shows. And again, that's for me where I found like a lot of people hustle to companies and stuff like that, to party planners. Nothing wrong with that at all. I've found that where I'm good at hustling is public shows, trying to sell tickets to public shows. And so far I've had enough success with that we're still alive, kicking it somehow.
What is the community like of magicians in New York? I've probably talked to more stand-up comedians than any specific type of artist in the city. And I've learned through speaking with many of them that the community is very strong, and they all kind of know each other. What's it like in the magic world? It
may even be tighter just because there's less magicians than comedians. So everything I know about the comedy community is, it's great, it's tight, but there's a lot of comedians, at least relative to magicians.
Sure.
If someone in New York says that they saw a magician, my first question is always, who was it? Because the odds are really high that I know who they are. Like, even if I'm not friends with them, the odds are so high that I've heard of them, because it's like, I don't know, there's probably like 50 of us who are like really out there working.
Is that right? 50
to 100. I've tried to figure out the exact number, so I could be way off. But like, I wouldn't say it's more than 100 who are like really, truly in New York and working consistently. It's not hard to know 100 names of people who you're constantly hearing all the time.
And do you guys organize meetups where you're hanging out, or is it mostly informal where like after events you're talking to each other? What does it look like?
Oh, it's both. I mean, and that's another great aspect of doing public shows is like, you know, my friends will come and they'll watch stand-up magic because maybe one of them is on stand-up magic and the rest of them come by to chill. And yeah, no, I mean, I think so much of the community is based on the fact that we hang out together and work together and are friends. And that's huge because that's where some of the best collaboration comes from is hanging out. It's one of the places I struggle because so many magicians are nocturnal and so many of my friends are like, yeah, we're meeting up at 11 or 12. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I go home early. But no, I mean, the jams, as they're called, are so fun. And it's how you get some of your best ideas. And I've been making an effort specifically with my friend Jason to jam in person more. So we've been trying to do once a week. And I just got back after the whole summer, but we've been trying to do it once a week in person because we're so much more productive and we can just sit and like, you know, on the phone you might have an awkward silence, but in person you just sit and you think about your thoughts and you push through.
What do you learn from them? I mean, are you actively sharing tricks? Like what exactly are what do you get out of being in such a tight network?
I mean, everyone brings their own skill set. So yeah, absolutely. I learn from my friends, and I have friends who are so much better than me at certain things. So I'm constantly learning from them, especially when it comes to like close-up, sleight of hand. I specialize in stage, mentalism, a lot of things with words, and I'm not as good at stuff with my hands. But I have a lot of friends who are great at that stuff. So I learn from them all the time. And it's just amazing what you can do when you get another brain, just collaborate, because you're stuck with something, but you're trying to come up with a line or a premise or a script or something like that. And I think, you know, there's a limit to it, but sometimes the more people you have, the better you're going to be. That's not always true. Probably it caps out at maybe 3 to 5, but for like good collaboration. But yeah, you get a lot of really great ideas with other people. And I think it's also just like the natural social aspect of like wanting to be as good as your friends. You see someone do something, like my friends all learned how to like make a signed card appear under somebody's watch. You know, and I really wanted to learn how to do that. And I'm still something I'm like, I'd say I'm not 100% confident in, but I'm like, oh, well, they're doing this great trick. I have to be able to do that trick. You know what I mean? But it's because I'm around other people who are really good at it.
I knew this was something I wanted to talk to you about because I've seen you twice. Yeah. The mentalism shit is, at least like from a complete amateur, is so crazy. I don't know how much you are, comfortable sharing, but how in the fuck do you do what you do? Like before you came over, I was watching one of your YouTube videos, and I mean, you're literally guessing people's iPhone passwords. Yeah. I've seen you do a bunch of other shit too. Like, first of all, how did you know you had a skill for this aspect of the world of magic, and anything you want to share to a lay audience about how you appear to be psychic or clairvoyant? I would love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've always loved public speaking. I've always loved to write. I've always loved to read. So I'm good with words. Like that's where my strong suit is. I can tell stories. I can hold people's attention. I can be good with words. Whereas like there really are so many magicians who are phenomenal sleight of hand artists in a way that I never will be. And that lends itself to mentalism and mind reading because it really can get quite conversational with the audience where your job is to reveal information in an interesting way. So I think it's never a choice I made. I never woke up one day and said, this is what I'm going to do. But the more I started coming up with more routines and putting my shows together, that's what ended up happening. And now it's, a nice buzzword to pitch to people if I'm trying to sell myself to a company of like, I do mostly mentalism. I do unlocking phone passwords and stuff like that. As far as the methods, it's tough to talk about, but I think like we were, mentioning a little bit, before we started recording, like it really is about figuring out what is the memory that the audience is going to have. And I want that memory to be, I walked up to someone and guessed their phone password. And I'm not doing the stupid stuff. Like and people are always like, oh, you like look over to their shoulder. Like you don't have to look over someone's shoulder to guess the password. Which is great. But otherwise it's not reliable or repeatable. But, with all of these things, let's just say they have a method, right? You kind of figure out a way to do it. And then what you're trying to do is hide it in a compelling story and give the audience enough to, sink their teeth into that they can kind of focus on that. Like recently I've been playing around with like astrological readings on stage and giving someone like an astrology reading. And that's an interesting thing because I was doing that with a trick that's normally I'd say subpar, like pretty average. But when I started tying it to the astrology reading, it got way better because it gave the audience a better story to latch onto. And so that is your job as a magician, is like, if you're just going to do mentalism and effectively regurgitate information, can you do it in an entertaining way? Can you do it in a surprising way? Can you reveal more information than they thought that you were going to do? Can you do it in a way that lets the audience tell a good story about it afterwards? Those are all the things you're kind of considering.
Given that the mentalism seems to be in line with you leaning on your talents, like your natural, some of your more natural ability, did you have a mentalism teacher that specifically worked with you on this aspect of your magic? How did you go about developing the skill set to be able to do what you do now?
I'd never had a specific mentalism teacher. I just kind of learned what I wanted to learn through like books and videos that were available. And, you know, like I said, I lean on my skill set. Like, a lot of it requires holding a lot of information in your head, and I got good at memory pretty early on. I've always been obsessed with memorizing things.
Yeah.
Like when I was like 12, I like tried to win my school's pie competition by memorizing a bunch of different digits of pi. When I was in high school, I did speech and debate, and the specific event that I did required you to like basically research, write, and memorize a 7-minute speech in 30 minutes.
Wow.
So you were not doing it word for word, but you were like spent 10 minutes coming up with your argument, maybe 13. Usually my limit was like 13 minutes researching and writing, so to speak, and then 17 minutes memorizing and practicing. Then you go into the room and you do it and it's done. And so I definitely got very good at memorizing a lot of information under pressure, and having to deliver. And so for me, one of the things, I think you've seen me do it, is memorize people's names in the audience.
Yes. That was the first time I met you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I got your name, I hope.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And that's, you know, it's the same thing. It's like, you know, you memorize one name by just creating a mnemonic for somebody and creating that image and tying it to them. And you memorize 50 names by doing that 50 times. And there is pressure because you're doing it in front of an audience and it's nerve wracking. But like, I know what skills I have, and I don't have some skills, but some that I do are certainly like speaking and memorizing things under pressure and holding a lot of information in my head. And so I do that as much as I can, and then I can add a memory stunt to the show in addition to the other stuff that I'm doing.
You've mentioned sleight of hand and mentalism. What are the subcomponents of the world of magic that exist? And I would imagine for you, if mentalism is really your sweet spot right now, you're probably in the top. If there are, let's say generously, there are 100 working magicians in New York, you've got to be in the top 10% generally of mentalists who are here. I don't know if you agree with that.
It's so hard to say. I mean, like in an ideal world, yeah, I'm the top 10%, but I don't want to say that confidently, because then I guarantee you some friend will listen to this and be like, yeah, here's the 50 other people who are better than you. But I definitely aspire to that for sure. Because I do focus on it quite a bit. But there's so many great mentalists in New York. So I don't want to categorize with a number, but regardless, no, there's great. Yeah, there's people who are sleight of hand magicians with cards. There are a lot of people who like focus on coins, although there's not people who are going to like build a career on that the way that you really could with cards. There's people who are going to do big stage illusions. That's rare. That's very rare in New York as well, because they're physically very large. You know, see a lot of venues that could actually support the capability for that. And then you see a lot of people who are just fairly general, and there's nothing wrong with that either. They're just a magician. They do some mind reading, they do some magic. And that's totally okay.
I think you said in back-to-back years, you did 150 shows each.
Yeah, I'm assuming, I don't have my final numbers for this year, but based on the fact that I just did the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Scotland.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that was a nice 23 show bump. So I think that by the end of this year, I should be at around 150.
Do you feel like you have gotten a number, roughly speaking, that is the sweet spot for you, both to like keep your energy level sane and also financially generate enough income where you're comfortable?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because you can make a lot more money with a lot less shows.
Yeah.
Like we lost money in Edinburgh. So that's
really?
Yeah, which is normal actually. You can make money, but it's pretty rare. If you're making money your first year, that's incredible. I plan on going back and I plan on profiting, but it might take another year or two, I would say, because you really have to develop a lot of traction, right? So that was 23 shows. I did not make money. In fact, I lost money. However, I got so much better. So you're like, that was an investment and it was entirely worth it. So you could do, yeah, I mean, there's probably people doing half the shows as me, making like double the money maybe, but it's because of where the audiences are. Like there is objectively more money in the corporate market. So if you do 80 corporate shows, that's probably a lot better than 150 public shows. I'm not doing 150 public shows, but I'm doing a lot. I'm probably doing 80 to 100. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if there's a sweet spot yet.
Okay.
I haven't found myself being burned out because 150 is only 3 a week. And if you said to someone, go work 3 days a week, they'd be like, okay. And I'm working other days than that. Like, you know, I don't have a show tonight, but I worked this morning. So it's like, you know, hard to totally quantify it, but I'm not tired yet. I'll say that. Like I'm still hungry.
How can you tell you're getting better? You just said at the Fringe Festival you were getting better. Do you have a coach who's with you who is noticing like a tennis coach would, like you're just hitting shots now that you couldn't before? How do you know you're improving? That's
a great question. I don't have like a coach or anything like that. I am starting to look for a director, which is exciting because that is a person who could totally tell me that. I mean, yeah, on one hand, you hear it tangentially from your friends, but on other hands, you just feel better. You feel more comfortable on stage, and you do feel like you're hitting shots, so to speak, where it's like, oh, I'm interacting with the crowd much better. I'm getting laughs on things I wouldn't normally get laughs on. I'm recovering from mistakes significantly better, even from a perspective of like learning people's names. Like, oh, I'm memorizing more names. I'm doing it quicker just because I'm getting that muscle just more and more and more. The routines are getting tighter. The storytelling is getting better. And it's not one linear thing forward. It's sometimes one step forward and 5 steps backwards. And there were times in Edinburgh that were really hard where I was like, I literally had a point in Edinburgh where I was like, am I getting worse? Like I really thought that. But I think it's also very similar to running or any hard thing that you do, where in the moment during a difficult thing, you feel terrible.
Yeah.
And then afterwards is when you realize, oh, I got a lot better. So what did Edinburgh teach me? It's like, okay, you're not performing for any kind of consistent audience. Like sometimes it's 20 people, sometimes it's 50 people, sometimes it's that in between. You don't know who they're going to be. Sometimes it's an audience full of people who don't speak English as their first language. Sometimes it's all Brits, whatever. So you learn to deal with that. And then you leave and you go back to New York where all the performing conditions are relatively similar. And you're like, oh, I was able to deal with that really hard thing. That makes New York seem way easier, you know, and you notice that things feel easier. It's nice.
It's a path to mastery, right?
It is.
I mean,
you just have to
that's
keep
what this
doing
is.
it. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, people are like, oh, how do you get good at something? And everyone's like, has all these dumb little hacks. And it's like, the hack is just keep doing it. Like, and I think that like, for as confident as I feel now, there's still plenty of times I don't feel confident. And I guarantee you 5 years from now, or maybe even 1 year from now, I'll look back and be like, what was I thinking? Like, you weren't good, you know? Like, I really think that when I moved to New York, I wasn't that good. But when I moved here, I thought to myself, oh, I'm fine. But now, you know, 2.5 years in the past, I'm like, I really wasn't that good. And I wonder what I'm going to think about myself in 2.5 years from right now.
I'd love to talk a little bit about the business of this work.
Yeah.
And you've already mentioned a couple of times that it's the corporate gigs, not surprisingly, that are the ones that pay. For somebody, and again, let's grant that there are roughly 100 full-time working magicians in New York. You get booked at a corporate event. What kind of money are we talking? You know, obviously the David Blaines and the Copperfields are getting, I'm sure, insane offers. But for somebody who's just a working full-time professional magician, what's a reasonable expectation from what you could get or as a range from a corporate job?
It's interesting. I mean, you could start to consistently get things that are in the $2,000 to $5,000 range. And some stuff that's higher and some stuff that's lower. I think the second you start to break $10,000 for a show is when you start to be in the true upper echelon of like, there are not many people doing that. And if you're going consistently less than 1,000, you probably have some serious room to grow. But if you're, even higher than 1,500, but to do between that and 5 consistently is going to get you a lot of business. And then there's plenty of people who can get between 5 and 10, depending on what the gig is and who the client is. I mean, it's so relative. And any magician who's like, I only go out for this much, like everyone's going to make exceptions or everyone's going to change their rate based on, you know, what it is and what the opportunity might entail. But the ability to get several $1,000s in a day, 1,000% exists. And that's how you do it. And that's how it's like, oh, how's a magician paying their rent? It's because they made their rent in a day. Yeah. So it's like you do that a couple times a month and you're fine. So people think it's like this crazy thing. It's really not that crazy. You have to land a couple gigs a month, basically.
And that 2 to 5 range, that's, I don't know, 2 hours of actual work, but I'm sure you put a lifetime into the prep work.
Yeah, I know. And it's so interesting to be like, oh, how much actually, I remember like my friend Jason and I went to Austin in February and we were doing a corporate gig together and it was a large sum of money, but, we were like, okay, so like, we were just trying to math it out. We're like, how much are we actually working today? Like, we did a show, we did some walk around, but honestly, we probably spent most of that day working on the show. Like, by the end of it, we're like, yeah, we fully just put in an 8-hour day. Like 1000% we worked for 8 hours that day to make sure the show was good. So it's still a lot of money. But yeah, and the tricky part is selling it to the client where they're like, oh, that's your hourly rate. It's like, well, not really. Like the thing only exists for an hour. You know what I mean? It's not like if it's like $2,000, you're not getting hired for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Cause like that's just not how it works. So it's like, I try to never charge hourly. For me, that's just not how it works. I'm like, this is what you're going to pay me. And I'm going to be there. Cause I know for a fact that it's not going to be more than 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah.
Cause that's just not how events work.
And these corporate opportunities, they're typically coming to you. What's the standard path to getting this Austin opportunity or another corporate gig in New York? They see your work and hear about your work and then contact you, or how does the business of this actually get realized?
It's a great question. I mean, and there's lots of people who are really good at generating leads and those people will sometimes run ads to create a marketing funnel that get people into it, email lists, all that stuff. I mean, if we're tracing back that gig, it came actually through Tess because we did that company's holiday party in December. They found Tess online because she's kind of Instagram famous. Said, can you guys do your show Stand Up Magic for our company? We did. And then they were like, oh, we're doing our, retreat in Austin. We'd love to have you for that too. So that is, word of mouth. That's the show going well and they want more of it. So for me, and again, this is a place I can really improve. Where I hustle, where I create gigs that did not exist out of thin air is public shows. I'm like, I'm going to put together this tour. I talk to the people at the Nudge. They text it out. I book every venue. I handle all the finances, whatever. That's me creating a gig out of thin air. I rarely create a corporate gig out of thin air, but the ability to do that can get you a lot of money. I just have really, really loved doing public shows and the joy that brings me. So if I had that hustle, then what I would be doing is probably much more consistently emailing corporate planners, all this stuff. The difference is that when I generate a public show out of nowhere, I know it can kind of happen because I'm like, there's going to be you're just playing the numbers. You're playing that a critical mass of people is going to come to your show. And when I started doing it regularly in Denver, the word of mouth started to spread. I didn't advertise and we'd sell 80 to 100 tickets every single month. Whereas with the corporate game, you're waiting for them to have an event. You can't call them and say like, hey, can you guys have an annual meeting? It's like, no, you're on their timeline. So in order to make that consistent, you need to have it's just classic marketing funnel. You just have to have a large enough sample size that eventually you're going to get hired consistently. So that's just not where I've chosen to put my time. Frankly, I probably should. One of the things I've been working on is speaking and working on like a keynote address because that kind of marries my love of writing and talking about magic and things like that with performing. And I'm going to push that a little bit harder because it's something I really enjoy.
Are there certain verticals in the business world that are known to love magic? Is it the tech world? Is it the finance world? Like within the realm of the entire economy, are there certain corporate companies that tend to really love magic, or is it really random across the board?
That's a great question. I'd say it honestly is pretty random across the board. I mean, you see a lot of like white collar, whatever.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that people are like, oh yeah. I mean, sometimes people can specialize. Like I have like this guy, David Gerard, who you saw at Stand Up Magic, right? I mean, he does a bunch of events, but he has a really unique background where he worked at Google for a very long time. He lives in Silicon Valley still and has done an excellent job positioning himself as the guy for Silicon Valley tech companies. Like you would not want to hire him because he speaks their language and he's not faking it. He literally does. He worked at Google and was really successful for like 10 years before doing magic full time. So for him, like, you could put him in any room. I guarantee you he will crush, but he'll probably crush that 2% harder at a Silicon Valley tech room because he knows it so well. Where in the exact same way that like you can put me in any room and I'll be confident, but if you put me in a room of like, if you let me, if I perform for Iron Man and for their staff, I'd be like, oh yeah, I've done your events. Like I know, you know what I mean? So like there's that level of connection maybe. But I don't think that there's like a overarching like, yep, every business to business communications firm loves magic. Like, I don't know.
I mean, man, like you have achieved, and I want to later ask you about how you think about success for yourself, but most of the artists that I ask the question, what does success mean to them? Almost all of them say, success to me would be being able to do what I love and make a living doing it. They're basically trying to get to where it sounds like you already are. When you look at your future, are you hoping to just widen the profit margin so your life can get more comfortable and you can work less? How are you thinking about where you want this to go?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I want to get better, number one. Like I think I can just be better at doing magic. So there's that. Wider profit margins for sure. Like, yes, I'm extraordinarily lucky that I get to pay my rent and do what I do in New York, but there absolutely can be more money. And I think that a lot of that money is just going to come from getting better at what I do and having better marketing materials and all that kind of stuff. So like, yes, I think there's like a huge opportunity for profit margins to grow considerably. More gigs, like, I mean, I'm at like around 150 a year. I could probably get to maybe 175 or 200. And I think after that, it'd be like, all right, where's the rest of my life? But that's fine because you can increase the amount that you make. So it's like, that's okay. Like, I think that 150 to 200, full reps a year, that's enough to be good. And the question is, can you just keep putting yourself in better positions? Because like a lot of those are public shows. So I'm getting the reps, which is making me good, which is still really important to me while I'm still young. So it doesn't matter if I did a public comedy show and didn't get paid for it, because I know that, corporate money will come. But yeah, I think it's just like there's so much room to grow from both an artistic perspective and a financial perspective, while still saying like, yes, I'm not in a cocky way, I think in like a holistic way. I'm like, yeah, I'm successful. Like I am able to do it, which I've realized a lot of people are not able to do. So I feel super lucky about that.
Are there any magicians in the country who go on tour like a Dave Chappelle would go on tour and do their craft as a magician in a bunch of different cities in the country? Is that something that someone is doing right now? I assume the answer is yes. And is that something you want to do one day?
Yeah, I would love to. And I'm kind of doing it, but not even close to the same way. But yeah, the answer is yes. It's just not that common because you need a fan base to do that.
Yeah.
And very few magicians have fan bases. The one person who's really, there's not one, there's multiple. There's Michael Carbonaro, who he had a show on True TV for a while called The Carbonaro Effect, which is really cool. He has a big enough fan base that he can do it. There's Justin Willman, who has a Magic Netflix special now. He has a big enough fan base that he can do it. If David Blaine toured, he has recently, but he's also just been doing his own thing and has a residency in Vegas. But if he toured again, I'm sure he could. There's a guy in England, Darren Brown, who's super famous. He's on or just finished a leg of his tour, but touring again in 2026. So yes, it can be done, but there's less infrastructure. If you're a comedian, you can be like, let me, go to this comedy club in Arkansas, but that doesn't exist in magic. There's a few magic venues and they're popping up around the country, but it's the infrastructure to tour as a magician does not exist as widely, where like you have to generate an audience. But if you're a comedian, you might be able to slot into a comedy club's existing audience, if that makes sense.
Great point. Is there a primary magic venue in New York City?
Not in the comedy club way. There's magic venues. Like there's the show Speakeasy Magic, which is really great. And that is a magic show. But you can't just call them up and say like, hey, I'm open. Can I perform? Like that's a show that is their show. So they have other magicians on it, but you can't just go do it. The only thing that's remotely close to this, and then there's the Chicago Magic Lounge in Chicago. But again, they're going to book months out and only certain slots. So like you can do it. I've done it and come and been a visiting magician there, which is great. But like, a comedy club is so much easier to, quote unquote, slot into, and a city might have a bunch of them. The Chicago Magic Lounge is the only one in Chicago. The Magic Castle is like the main one in LA, or there's the Magic and Comedy Club. There's like the House of Cards in Nashville. Like there are these other venues, but nowhere near the comedy circuit that exists, like night and day.
Do you see a path in your lifetime where magic could become increasingly popular to people, and we could hypothetically see in 20 or 30 years a proliferation of magic clubs in the country? I don't know if that's something you think about, but this is a dynamic world. Interests change in cultures. Do you see a path to that?
I sort of do. And you're seeing it more. There's a really big magic venue getting built in Chicago right now that is supposed to rival the Magic Castle. We'll see. I don't know, but it could in the next year. So there is a proliferation of it already. The problem is like it's not necessarily easy to just do magic in the way that like you can do comedy for free. You just write. Magic is expensive. Sometimes it's hard to find venues for it. And there's less originality in magic because magic is also a marketplace. Magic tricks can be bought and sold. Whereas like all comedy is kind of original, or mostly. So it would take a lot more people. I think part of it is genuinely a numbers game, where if you had like, it's going to be more popular and more people are doing it, which maybe is a chicken and the egg type problem. But like, I think magic is getting more popular. And I don't meet very many people who aren't interested in it. But the only thing I'll say is like, you almost don't want it to get too mainstream. Because when people hear they're going to a magic show, they're like, oh, that's so exciting. I've only been to a couple magic shows, you know? Like the occasional person I meet at a show is a really big magic fan. But most people aren't. Most people are just curious about what it's going to be. So, and that kind of is a good thing. So it could get bigger. If in my lifetime it's on the level that comedy is right now, I'd be pretty surprised. But I mean, I can't predict the future. Yeah. So
I want to go into a couple more things before we close this down.
Yeah.
One is I want to go back to the theme of skepticism and claims of supernatural ability in people around the world. You seem to know, or at least have heard of, almost all of the magicians who are here working as professionals. Are there people in the world, I think you mentioned the country of India earlier in the conversation, that claim they are very talented and work in the same realm as you do, but they don't tell the audience this is magic. They tell the audience, I am supernatural. Are there people you're aware of in the world who are claiming to have those sorts of powers and are creating a following, have a base of people who believe they actually are beyond human in some capacity? I don't know if you're aware of that, but I think someone who understands at a deep level how all of this gets done in many ways is a shield towards a shield against human beings being led down a dark, false path potentially. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about that, but I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not like those people 1000% exist. Probably less in first world countries purely because of the internet. It's much harder for that to exist now. But are there random like shamans in India? Like absolutely, that's been documented. And there's people who try and build a cult following with magic tricks. And I mean, I will say there's plenty of people in the United States who are posing as mediums, maybe not magicians. It's so hard. Like I can't really speak to people like magicians in other countries. But there are plenty of people. I mean, I know people in Denver who are posing as mediums, who are super popular in Denver. And these people are saying, I can talk to the dead. And I'm like, you can't. You're doing cold reading. You're doing hot reading. You're doing magic tricks. You cannot talk to the dead. And plenty of people believe that, even in the United States. So there's that. With magicians, probably less so. A lot of magicians will just say that they're doing it for that it's fake. And then the occasional magician in the United States will be like, yeah, I'm genuinely doing it. And it's like, if you want to say that, whatever. But the one I have a bigger problem with is in the United States, you see plenty of mediums saying they can communicate with the dead when they actually can't. And yeah, like we said, I think that's very unethical.
You can't go in a major city and not see working psychics.
Yep.
People who are, I mean, I've seen this in my own lifetime, just the amazing boom of interest in astrology that people deeply believe in this stuff. How do you explain, and what would you say to somebody who, I'll give you a personal example. I have a friend who lost a child a number of years ago. And to your point from earlier, I remember talking with him a year after they lost their son, that they were both, you know, they're obviously still grieving, but they were deeply grieving at that time. And one of their neighbors was claiming to be clairvoyant and a medium. And they were actively considering going and talking to this person because they were desperate for anything to try to talk to their son. What would you say to everybody would love. I think most people would love to believe in this stuff, that there is real magic available. What is your response to people who believe they have found a real medium, a real psychic, someone who seems to possess skills that they can't explain, but probably because you've worked in the world you have for so long, you kind of understand what they're doing?
Totally. I mean, that level of grief is pretty much the worst it can get. So it's hard to even imagine that, losing a kid. And it's entirely natural why they would want to do that.
Of course.
And that's the thing. You can never blame the parents in that situation.
Yeah.
You blame the medium who's preying on them, because the reality is they can't talk to the dead. And I can say that with a lot of confidence. So for me, all the blame goes to the medium. I would never, if the parents were like, we're grieving and we're grasping at straws, and the person said they could talk and I did it, I would never be like, oh my God, you're so stupid. It's like, no, you lost a kid. Like you feel so utterly helpless. You're going to try literally anything to just make yourself feel good. Like I couldn't blame the parents in the situation. I think it's so sad and gross when those mediums are saying, oh yeah, we can do it. And they're just going to be able to get hits. It's not that hard. Like, you start to grasp at straws. You start to name common letters in boys' name. Oh, I'm getting an R. Oh, and they're like, oh, it's a D. And you're like, of course, because an R and a D, they're the similar shape. Of course it's a D, and they're going to take that as a hit. We take the things that are true about this. I mean, I was really looking this up for, like how to give an astrological reading to someone. And I was looking at all the traits of all these star signs, and they're so generic, but they feel true. They feel true. Like, one of them is like, you're a person with a really good spirit and you're adventurous, but you also are able to see the bigger picture. And there's always that contrast of you can say those things of like, you're super bold and you're super energetic and you're willing to get what you want. Definitely not at the expense of other people, because you're still caring about that. But like, you're not afraid to make that shift. And people are like, yeah, that is me, and that's Aries, I think, but like, it could be anything. And then, you can tie that to a magic trick, and all of a sudden it becomes quite believable. And that's what I do, but I'm luckily doing it under the guise of it not working. But yeah, as far as the psychic mediums and stuff, I think it's, I just think that they're preying on people at their most vulnerable. I really do. And that's sad.
Do you feel like I don't know how many of these people you've met, but do you get the sense that they believe what they're saying, or they know full well that they're hoodwinking these people?
I think it's probably both. There's this one woman in Denver who I don't want to call out publicly, but I think that it's all fake. And I know plenty of people in Denver who have seen her, and it's like, well, it's comforting, and I think that it's probably both, because I think it'd be really hard to live with yourself if you really thought you were lying to people. So I'm guessing, this is pure guess, that the way that they justify it is saying like, I'm literally helping these people. So it might not be totally real, but we're seeing tangible changes in the way that they're feeling, and therefore it's worth it. And that's the counter argument that a lot of people say to me. They're like, what's the harm? And I'm like, the harm is that it's a blatant lie, in my opinion. The harm is that you're not doing what you're saying you're doing. The harm is that you are not actually hearing them. But I think you can probably delude yourself into thinking that you are. You have a thought and you tell yourself that thought came from somewhere else. Like, okay.
And it really is, to your point from earlier, it's the hits or the perception that you have hit on something that couldn't possibly just come to you,
right,
that makes people believe it. I'd love to hear what else you may have to say about how it is that as the recipient, you get taken by these people and you end up believing they do possess supernatural powers.
Totally. I mean, part of it's like, this information isn't too hard to look up online usually. Like, you're traditionally dealing with dead people. That information is public. There might be an obituary. You can learn a lot about that person. And you can also play to a size of a room, right? So you can be in a room of 100 people and they all came to talk to the dead, and you go, oh my God, this person was a doctor. Will you just raise your hand up if this sounds like you? And then 10 people raise their hand because they lost a doctor. Great. And you can just play the odds and narrow it down until you get a hit. You can have people write stuff down and forget the fact that they write it down, or forget the fact that you ever could have had the ability to look at it, which is a magic technique. But if you use it in a mediumistic sense, then people are going to usually buy into that. And And there's so much on cold reading and hot reading and just basically like playing the odds of certain things and knowing a lot of common names and things like that. And so you can get quite specific. A great video to watch is this Darren Brown. He does a show called Infamous where he does all this, these fake readings while saying that they're fake, but also getting the information. It's really great. I think it's an incredible piece of art. Totally worth watching. And he does it definitely way more consistently than any medium would be able to do. And he's saying that it's fake. And that's the video I always show people when I'm like, I'm telling you this stuff isn't real. And it's okay for it not to be real. Like, let it be a magic trick. Let it be for entertainment. Don't let it be for preying on people when they're really sad.
Yeah. I'd love to close with this, which is how I like to close these conversations. And I brought this up, alluded to this earlier about success. And I'd love to ask you, given your success already early in your career, how do you define, what does that word mean to you? How do you think about the word success as it applies to the work that you do and the work you hope to do in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, success is really like, can I wake up and, for the most part, have autonomy over my day? Which for the most part I do. And that makes me really happy. And I think as far as future success goes, it's just, can I have more autonomy, which would just mean, can I say no to certain gigs that right now I'll say yes to because it's a lot of money? Can I take, if I want to go take a month off to travel or something like that, or go pursue a different project, am I financially able to do that? Things like that. So it's like, I think the more autonomy you have, the more successful you are. You're not successful if you're making a lot of money, but you can never spend time with your friends or your family or your partner. I'm really lucky that I can spend time with the people that I love and run and do all these other hobbies that have nothing to do with magic and get to do magic. So for me, that is success. But as far as going more so, it's just having more of that, I guess, more security.
Yeah. This is so great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
This is
awesome.
Really interesting.
I'm so glad.